Hi everyone, I'm Claire and I'm 16 years old, 15 of which I spent in an orphanage. I hated it there, but one day they told me to pack my things and say goodbye to my friends. I would have a family now. With a trembling hand, I opened the door of my new house and I was immediately hugged by two smiling people. Welcome home, daughter. We're your parents from now on. I burst out crying from happiness, and suddenly, through my tears, I saw 4 more silhouettes, and they were boys. Just imagine, in one day, I had not only found a mom and a dad, but also 4 brothers. Ethan had been born first, then Oscar, and Peter, and finally Dan. That's how my new life began. I felt like I was in heaven for half a year. My parents doted on me because they finally had a daughter. And as for the boys, I can't say they were happy about the addition to the family, but at least they were patient with my girly whims. Until one morning, when I woke up with a terrible sore throat. After stuffing me with medicine, my parents went to work and left my brothers to look after me. They took care of me the whole day, ordering me pizza, giving me their console. One of them even did my homework. I was loving every second of it. Until, in the evening, Ethan came to give me cough syrup. I obediently opened my mouth, and Ethan suddenly hit me painfully in the teeth with a spoon. What are you doing?
I missed a football match because of you, and my team lost. Why did you have to fall ill now?
It's not like I did it on purpose.
Our parents don't fuss over any of us this much, even though we're their children by blood. Look how much they spoiled you, a girl that isn't even theirs.
And with those words, Ethan stormed out, leaving me at a complete loss. The next morning, though, I had already felt much better. That day, I had simply no right to be sick. After all, I was turning 16. It was the first birthday I would ever celebrate with my family. My parents let me invite friends over and throw a party. So by the evening, our house was filled with guests, noise, and fun. And when I opened my eyes the next morning, I saw the angry faces of my brothers. It seemed my wish had not come true. Ethan screamed so loudly, I felt like my head was about to crack open.
What have you done? Mom and Dad are about to return from their night shift.
But I don't remember. I don't think I've done anything. But oh, how wrong I was. Our house looked like the devil and his entire entourage had been partying all night in it. I panicked and I rushed to wipe the puddles of yesterday's cocktails and gather the pizza boxes when we heard the front door shut and a voice rang out.
Kids, we're home!
Mom came upstairs and grabbed her head. I was about to start crying and begging for forgiveness when my mom suddenly snapped at Ethan.
Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You are the oldest and you couldn't even keep an eye on your sister. I hope a month of house arrest will knock some sense into you.
And after that, she left. And Ethan shot me a withering look. It seemed like I'd unwittingly made a bitter enemy. I felt terrible about it all, and I bought him a new PlayStation game to somehow make amends the next day. I was walking home, rehearsing my apologies, when suddenly someone snatched my phone from my hand. Hey, wait, stop! But the thief was already too far away by that point. I had gone and let everyone down again. I lost the phone that my parents had given me on the first day we'd met. What a loser. I felt so helpless. I sat down on the curb and I burst into tears. But then I felt someone's palm on my shoulder. That damn thief. I'll show him. I jumped to my feet, raised my fist, and I unexpectedly saw Ethan. I told him what had just happened to me and I prepared to listen to him scold me. But also unexpectedly, my brother said kindly,
Claire, I'm really sorry. Don't be sad though. I promise not to tell our parents. After all, we are a family.
I hugged him and I handed him the game that I'd bought him. On the way home, I told him how awful my life had been at the orphanage. Ethan nodded understandingly, and he comforted me. So we came back home as friends. But that wasn't even the most pleasant thing that day. Our parents had gone on a business trip for 3 days, and Oscar, Peter, and Dan had bought burgers, which Mom and Dad usually didn't let us eat. We ate so much fast food, we couldn't even get to our rooms and we fell asleep right in the living room. In the morning, I woke up happier than ever. We all sat down to have breakfast together when Ethan suddenly suggested,
Hey Claire, why don't we all go on a picnic together while our folks are out on a business trip?
It wasn't hard to convince me. I put some juices, sandwiches, and vegetables in baskets, took a camera, and settled comfortably in the front seat of Ethan's car. When everyone was finally ready, we turned up the music really loud and drove into the forest. 2 hours later, we were in a sunny clearing. The noise from the highway didn't reach out here, and I breathed in the smell of freshly cut grass. It was a real high. I took some of the baskets of food from the car, kicked off my shoes, and ran barefoot across the field when a sharp pain suddenly pierced my left foot. Ah! My leg! My leg! My brothers immediately ran up to me, and I looked at my foot with horror. Oh no, glass was sticking out of it. But as it turned out, I didn't really have a reason to be scared. Ethan took out a first aid kit from the car and carefully removed the glass. And then he bandaged my foot. Now, only a slight tingling reminded me of the ridiculous injury. And of course, that didn't stop me from having fun. We played badminton and board games, we ate sandwiches, and we sang songs. The little girl inside me, who had wanted a family for her whole life, was rejoicing. And when it got dark, we started telling scary stories around the campfire. When it was my turn, I asked my brothers to wait just a little bit, and I ran into the bushes to do my business. But when I came back out, neither my brothers nor the car were in the clearing anymore. I put my hand in my pocket to get my phone, and I immediately remembered, damn, it had been stolen. But I didn't panic. Maybe my brothers had just left to get more food or drinks, and they'd be back any minute. After all, we had been having so much fun together. But then an hour passed, and no one came back to pick me up. My hopes were starting to fade pretty fast. After an hour and a half had passed, I realized that they had abandoned me, alone, in the middle of a dark forest. I had never been so scared. The trunks of the pines looked like someone was about to jump out from behind them, and it was so ominous. I felt like I was being watched every second, and when I saw the bushes start moving, I screamed and started running with all of my might in just a random direction. I don't know how long I spent running, but eventually, I heard traffic again. I was saved! I rushed towards it, and soon I found myself on the side of the road. Bright headlights blinded me, and I covered my face with my hands. Someone stopped just a couple of meters away and casually asked,
"Where are you heading, girl?"
After my eyes had gotten used to the light, I managed to make out the face of a smiling man. I really didn't have any choice. Staying alone at night on an unfamiliar highway would have been a much crazier idea than getting into a car with a stranger. So I told him my address, and I trusted fate. At first, everything seemed to be going fine. We drove along the highway and listened to the rock hits of the 1980s. And I even started singing along. But all of a sudden, the driver stopped near an abandoned gas station.
"Girl, please get out of the car."
Goosebumps ran down my back. What a fool I'd been. I had jumped into an open trap all by myself. And with a trembling hand, I opened the door, stumbled out of the car, and stared at my companion with pleading eyes. "Please, sir,
Tell me what happened to you. How did you end up alone on the road so late at night?
Well, my brothers and I, we were having a picnic, and then a loud rustle interrupted my stuttering. The driver was taking something out of the trunk, and at that moment, I realized that I didn't have anything to lose. And so as soon as the stranger disappeared behind his car, I started running with all of my might back into the forest. I just ran, and I kept running, and running, and running. At least an hour must have passed before I walked out of the forest and found myself near an unfamiliar supermarket. I had finally gotten out. My throat felt so dry from fear and from running that it was hard to breathe. I found a few coins in my pocket, and I took a water bottle out of the refrigerator, and I went up to the cash register when I suddenly saw him in the queue. The very man I'd been running away from for so long already. My blood ran cold. The bottle I was holding slipped out of my weak grasp, and it shattered on the floor. A loud bang made the driver turn his head, and our eyes met. "Sir, I didn't do anything. Please, just leave me alone." The huge man suddenly laughed, kindly, almost like a child, and said,
"Girl, thank God you're all right. Where did you run off to?"
Why did you stop the car? What were you gonna get out of the trunk?"
"My bag with my ID was in there. I'm a policeman. I wanted to show it to you so you wouldn't be afraid of me and you would tell me the actual truth of what happened. After all, you've got to admit, a child on the highway at such a late hour, it's very strange."
I exhaled loudly and laughed. Yeah, it's easy to imagine all sorts of things when you're in a dark forest at night. After the policeman showed me his ID, I immediately felt better. I had run in vain. The driver turned out to be a kind man. He drove me home, even though he was heading in the other direction. After thanking him for his help, I walked up to our door. I hadn't even lifted my hand to knock yet when the door swung open and my dad hugged me. It took us both a bit to calm down, but then I froze in horror. He looked so pale. Dad, I'm home. I'm fine. I'm just But before I could finish, my younger brothers came and they hugged me too. All of them interrupting each other, they were shouting,
"It was all Ethan! He said we were gonna get ice cream, and then Mom and Dad came back earlier and we told them everything. We were gonna go out looking for you. Claire, I'm so happy you've been found."
At that moment, I felt like the happiest girl in the world. My family, my new family, had been even more worried about me than I ever would have imagined. I kissed my younger brothers and my father, and I noticed that my mom wasn't here. That's when Dad explained everything.
When the boys told us what Ethan had done, your mother felt sick. The ambulance has taken her to the hospital. Claire, you are very dear to us.
Confused, I looked around the room and I suddenly saw him. Ethan was sitting in the corner and sobbing loudly, like a 1-year-old child would. I hated him with my whole heart, but at that moment, my brother just looked so pathetic. "Ethan, I'll forgive you if you promise to never do something like that again."
Kids, listen. There's no point in hiding anything any longer. For many years, your mother and I have been unsuccessfully trying to have a child. We lost all hope and decided to adopt. Ethan, that's how you came into our family. We were raising you like our own son when it suddenly turned out that your mother was pregnant. We were so happy when Oscar was born, then Peter, and then a few years later, Dan. But we also wanted a daughter. However, the doctors had forbidden us from having any more kids. We were already desperate, and a miracle happened.
I squeezed my eyes shut, overwhelmed, but my dad continued.
A letter came from the orphanage that we'd taken Ethan from. It turned out that he had a sister. Ethan, Claire, your parents died in a car accident 15 years ago, but Claire came to an orphanage much later, after the grandparents who had been raising her died. When we found out that Claire was Ethan's sister, we took her in as soon as we could, so you could grow up, knowing each other.
I stood there, afraid to look up. In just one evening, my life had turned completely around and I didn't know what to do next. But Ethan recovered faster than I did. He threw himself at my feet and whispered pleadingly,
"I'm sorry, Claire. I'm gonna be the best brother ever. I am such a moron."
All my anger instantly disappeared. I gently ran my hand through my brother's hair. My own brother. For the first time in 16 years, I had not only found my family in spirit, but also by blood. We spent at least an hour hugging in the living room, and next day, we went to the hospital to visit Mom. Luckily, she was recovering quickly. This story had taught me that everything should be in moderation. Being the only daughter in the family is cool, of course, but it doesn't make me a princess. After my mom was discharged from the hospital, I started to help her around the house and take care of my brothers, ironing and sewing up their clothes, cooking, and cleaning rooms. And they returned the favor. They pampered me with gifts, and they helped me out, no matter what.